The song Right and Wrong was also written in South Korea at the moment when I was a young and proud father, husband, a family man with a good job and bright future. I learned, I think, during that time how important it was to carve out some time to yourself. You know, my dream came true when I met my wife and when we started a family and we were gifted two beautiful children. But then I realized that, like my friend once said, in this class that I was teaching at Samsung Group in South Korea, before the marriage, I was the main actor in my life. After the marriage, and especially after the kids, I became a supporting role. All I had to do was, go to work, get the money, clean, take care of the kids, take care of the wife. And I had very little time to myself, so it became almost, like in the song Choices. Every day the choices we make become things that we hate, make us or break as well. It's difficult, of course. I also became a workaholic. I was working, sometimes 12 hours a day when I was in South Korea. I had a great job. I was a professor. I worked like 15 hours a week. I had so much free time. But I wanted more money. So I got myself, a job with the Samsung Group, with the Hyundai Group. I worked in kindergartens, in school, at my university as well too. All kinds of different jobs. And I made so much money, so much so that I was able to buy a house here in North America, open a restaurant. We traveled all over the world with our family. I mean, a trip to, let's say, Europe to visit my family in Bosnia and Herzegovina from South Korea for four of us would be about $10,000. You all that, cost. I needed money to support all of us. And I worked a lot, so I really had so little time to myself. I would spend a lot of times with my kids, with my wife as well too, because I truly wanted to be a part of this whole experience. I didn't really consider that there was jobs for men or jobs for women within home, because I did everything. I changed diapers, I fed my kids, I made food, I washed dishes, I did laundry as much as I could, because like I said, I worked so much. So in the end, some of that work fell onto my wife's back, and she had to do some of it while I was doing something else. Luckily, I had great educational background, and I was able to get great jobs. Still, something was always, kind of gnawing at me in the back of my mind. And I think that was music, that was art, that was some kind of expression that I needed to needed in my life. I needed to express something. I felt, my parents gave me life as well. God created me because of something, for some reason, and truly that is one of the most difficult questions we can ask ourselves. Why are we here, and what is the reason of our existence, right? Because we each have some sort of role in this life and then in the next life, just like we had something in previous life. There's no beginning, there's no ending. To me, there was a connection with music, with all of it. I remember when I got my first guitar, I placed the words of Yugoslav Nobel Prize winner for literature, who wrote that, you know, the bigger the light, the shinier it is. You know, the truth is just kind of naked and almost ugly. So I always ask myself whether this music, you know, the guitars, all these things that I wanted to be a part of, like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, were actually something that came from the devil, not from God. Not knowing that these two ideas are pretty much, you know, two sides of the same coin, yin and yang, and that both the devil and God are within us, and it's depending on how we behave and what we do, we're doing one's work or another's work. Nevertheless, I always was a little bit, how can I say, aware, almost afraid of music, even though I loved it. I knew of its power to connect to yourself, to others, and with everything else around us. So I remember that particular night when I wrote the song Right and Wrong. I was going through all these different ideas in my head. You know, look at me, I'm just working, I'm just taking care of my kids, taking care of my family, but I'm ignoring myself. You know, I'm not really able to find that balance in which I'm also true to myself. So I went up to my wife, you know, every night after work we would be putting kids to bed for a couple of hours, reading books, changing diapers, making sure they have water, they don't have water, they are tucked in and all that jazz. You know how it is. I mean, if you don't, great. So I did it. I would do that every night. And most of the time, you know, while they were falling asleep, after they would fall asleep, then my wife and I would watch like a, you know, drama or something like that. Even sometimes have a little bit of alcohol or something just to like forget things, a glass of wine, maybe sometimes some food, you know, just to have some sort of life because everything was focused on kids and work. But that night, there was something that just came over me, right? And I became this macho man, this typical guy. I said to my wife, listen, I'm going out and you're gonna stay with the kids. I need time to myself. And you know what? I don't think I've ever really done that. And you know, I hadn't done that until that time. I was, like I said, I was always the good guy. I was always the one making sure everybody's okay, everything is okay. I was the team player. I could never really take time to myself for myself. That's just not who I was, you know, and I still have problems with that, you know, taking up the space. You know, I always, you know, I'm first to share. I'm the only person that I know that, you know, you can go to my show and expect to perform. I've always opened up my stages to absolutely everyone, but I'm also changing. I'm realizing that not everybody deserves to be, you know, a part of my experience. Not because, you know, they are bad or good or evil or, you know, heavenly, but it's because our purposes don't align as well. We all have some sort of purpose in life, and sometimes, you know, your purpose overpowers the logic, overpowers the emotions. You know, there are some things that need to happen, and you can't always do the right thing. Seriously, you just can't. That night, I just knew I was, you know, I was an ass. I said I'm going out. And in Bosnian language, you know, when somebody tells you like, yeah, sure, go get the hell out of here, or go with the devil is the expression that we use. Yes, go with the devil. May devil take you. And I think in English it's the same way, when you said tell somebody to get the hell out of here, you use that word hell. You're sending them to hell. You're not sending them to paradise. You know, but when you're in a good mood, you will say, "Go with angels. May God bless your road." So when you're angry at somebody, you're sending them to hell, and that's exactly where I was going. Um, at that time, I was reading about Robert Johnson and his experience, or the myth, the legend of him meeting the devil exactly at midnight at some crossroads somewhere in rural United States down south, and him selling his soul to devil for the music. There was something about this whole music experience that I wanted to experience myself. I wanted to see if this was true or not. I've always known that there is more to music than just, like I said, everything that we know. There are so many other elements to it, and I speak of it in so many different other videos. But here is just a proof of it, rather than the whole history, because we all know stories. This one is about the song Right and Wrong. So I said yes. I said to my wife, yes, exactly, that's where I'm going. I'm going to meet the devil. Of course, she thought I lost my mind. So I grabbed my guitar, and around 11 o'clock at night, I left my university dorm. We were living at the university campus of this huge university in South Korea. There was about 6,000 students attending that place, and we lived in a dormitory. So one side of our dorm was professors, and the other side was females. Across there was male, and it was huge. There was so many people. We had several basketball courts, football courts. They had a lake in the middle of the university. Many buildings, all kinds of things like our kindergarten, stores, restaurants, everything. Underneath the dormitory was a huge dance rehearsal space, the size of a stadium, like half a soccer stadium. It was huge. Just huge room, all surrounded with mirrors. Integral part of learning dance. So as you know, K-pop and Korean pop is very popular worldwide, and a huge part of their singing is dancing. They do these intricate dancing, routines, and that's part of the song as well. I mean, they're so catchy. I caught myself so many times learning these dance moves, and I really should have learned more, because I always was mesmerized by dance as much as I was with music. But in this life, I'm a musician. Maybe the next life I'll be a dancer. Maybe I was a dancer before. I was a ballerina in previous life. I don't know, I'm kidding. Or I will be one in the next life. Nevertheless, I, told the security officer I'm going downstairs. He said, yes, sure, you're a professor, you can do this. Let's go. So I went in, and it was, wow. Like, I had no idea where I got this strength, or where I got this idea that I would tell my wife, like, I wasn't angry at her, I wasn't angry at my kid, I wasn't angry at anybody. It was just some kind of determination in me that I need to go out. I need to just be by myself and do this. So there I was in this huge room, surrounded with mirrors, just playing the guitar. And you know what? It's a very difficult thing to do. to purposely put yourself in a position when you're alone or by yourself and you're doing something for yourself. It's a very uncomfortable thing. First of all, to be by yourself and to do things for yourself. Most of us struggle with that. If you don't, good for you. But we don't know how to be alone, and that's something that's not just cultural. I think it has to do with our genetics. We're afraid of being alone because if you're by yourself in a cave as a caveman, you're an easy prey. These days, I don't think we are able to be alone with our own thoughts. Like we need a phone, we need some sort of distraction, to keep our mind occupied from the surrounding, because it's scary when you listen to the sound of silence. So there I was in this empty room, just me and my thoughts and this newfound courage, whatever it was, determination, waiting for midnight to be given a song. I had no idea that I would be able to write a song or anything like that. I mean, I've written many songs, obviously, but I never on demand. Songs come to you. A lot of times when driving, when showering, when doing anything but wanting to write a song. Nevertheless, at 12 o'clock, I am playing a G minor chord, which is not a very usual chord. Most of the songs, if those of you who are musicians know, will start from A minor, E minor, G or C or D. There are several chords that most people start playing automatically. G minor is not really a chord that you would go to kind of start. A lot of songs are written in G minor, a lot of Bosnian traditional songs. I Shot the Sheriff is in G minor. Nevertheless, there I am, and like they say in English, I shit you not, I kid you not. At 12 o'clock, the melody comes. And that's it. That's the whole melody. It has 3 chords, a little bit more in one part. It has 4 lines, 4 changes, and repeat itself. The words are just as simple. Excuse me. This is how the story goes. Some things are right and some things are wrong. And everybody knows the difference between right and wrong. It's a very simple message. Excuse me again. There's no need to blame God or the devil. Everything we do comes from the inside, whether it's good or bad. And sometimes you just have to do the right thing, sometimes you have to do the wrong thing. I mean, it's up to you. We all have that moral compass, or we should. Unfortunately, we all know that our emotional education happens through TV, through media, through movies, through music. So our moral compass has been tampered with. Nevertheless, everybody knows the difference between right and wrong. Rumi says, beyond right and wrong there's a field and I will meet you there. Rumi was a famous Islamic poet, philosopher. I don't know if I know the difference between right and wrong. And that's why the song came to me. Exactly at midnight, at 12:05, at 12:15, I was already back home. I came back, I said, I'm back, the song is there. I'm glad my wife let me back in that time. And that's it. That's how the right and wrong came about. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.